Okay, seems I am online. Hey,
Yeah,
everyone who's watching. So thanks. I will be talking about Balancer, most about self-balancing pools and the DeFi productivity that you should know. And I think, like, what is a self-balancing pool? That's an interesting question, right? When I first joined Balancer, everyone was saying, hey, like, Balancer is just an automatic market maker. And I think there's a much more interesting story there. And the story is, let's say, like, I'm from Brazil, we have sugarcane here. That's sort of how the country started. And if you put sugarcane inside the mill, that's how you get sugar. But turns out you also get bagasse. And bagasse is a side effect that is actually very useful in some situations. There's actually a lot of energy in it. So the same thing can be thought about curves. You get arbitrage, you put it on a curve, and you get an exchange, and you also get a liquidity pool. And the liquidity pool is sort of the side effect of the byproduct of having an exchange. And the liquidity pool works in a very interesting way, right? You've probably heard about liquidity pools; they are everywhere. And the way they work is you can think of them as two connecting vessels, where as one of the like sides starts to like grow more. What happens is that, like, let's say you have a Ether and Bitcoin one, as Bitcoin grows, what's going to happen is that sort of going to flow over into the other side, right? So, and that those Bitcoins will be sold and turned into Ether. And the same thing will happen all the time. Like if as Ether goes up, like it starts falling on the other side, and as Bitcoin goes up, it starts falling. And it's a self-balancing and a self-equilibrium pool, right? And it's like it's literally a pool. You can think of it as a pool of water. And what I'm saying is, if you think of Uniswap, the biggest automatic market maker, it is for trading. And as a byproduct, you get a self-balancing portfolio of two tokens, right? But Balancer started with the idea of trying to build self-balanced portfolios, and they got into basically the same mechanism. And we actually want to create self-balancing portfolios for any number of tokens. And as a byproduct, you get trading. And I think that's a super interesting switch there. Because why does self-balancing portfolios work, right? Let's take a look at the current DeFi market, right? Every so often I update those numbers. Right now we have like $13 billion in Maker, $11 billion in Aave, $9 billion in Compound, 7 Curve, 7 in Uniswap. Balancer is at 11 with $2 billion, which like it's a lot of money, but it's just that there's a lot of other competitors there. If you put it in context, right? That's, let's say the dot of the I is, I think, $2 million, something like that. This would be $2 billion. This would be $7 billion, 11, $13 billion, which is Maker. But put that in context, that's also Robinhood, right? You can see that Robinhood can eat up all of DeFi, swallow it up, and it still fits together inside Robinhood, right? Like it's getting shorter, right? It's getting like we are getting there, but Robinhood is still bigger than us. But if you get something like Berkshire Hathaway, they're $800 billion. Like we are, if we are the Earth, Berkshire Hathaway is Jupiter or something like that, right? And if we zoom out, we can go and zoom out more and more and more. What we're gonna get is like even Berkshire Hathaway is a small fish compared to people like Vanguard. And why am I comparing DeFi to Vanguard and to Berkshire Hathaway, right? If we are this little planet, Vanguard is the sun, Berkshire Hathaway is like Jupiter, right? This is us, this is home, like the pale black dot. why am I comparing those two things, right? It seems that they are completely unrelated. But I would say no, because really, like what those guys do is just they do portfolios, right? That's all those guys do. They just keep changing the portfolio, they just adjusting the portfolio here and there. But you can think of a portfolio as just there are assets, there's a strategy, and there's governance, right? Those three things, it makes what Berkshire Hathaway is, what Vanguard is, what Robinhood is. It's just a bunch of assets with some governance and some strategy, right? And you can think of the assets, the strategy can be assets, can be like, of course, assets are in like the physical world in Vanguard and Berkshire Hathaway, but like, or I think what binds us all together is the belief that probably like everything that is out there, everything that is on Nasdaq, everything that is on that is can be traded on a stock market will be tradable in crypto, right? Everything is being kryptonized. So like everything that can be on a crypto asset will be a real asset. Strategy is a trading curve. It's just that how exactly do you decide when do you sell and when do you buy? And governance is what decides which assets you have, right? And normally we think of assets, we think of, oh, there are high risk assets, there are low risk assets, there's a basket of assets. You can set all of that inside the making of this curve. And people are doing a lot of curves, right? So we have like just basic pools in Balancer right now, which is just straightforward pools, 1, 2, or 3 tokens. Like it can be up to 8. Used to be that it was up to 8 tokens. Now we launched a new version. It's basically infinite tokens. I think it's like 100 tokens, something crazy like that. And it's just like, okay, you create a pool and it's gonna forever be those 2 tokens with that specific rate, right? So it's maybe it's 80 ball, 20 doll ether, and it's gonna be forever like that. But people are doing other very interesting things, right? PyDAO, they want to create an autonomous index funds and balancer, and they are doing that. And the idea is really like, look, you get that traditional exposure, that crypto exposure, that cash, you turn that into crypto assets, you put that in a balancer, right? Catnip exchange, it's like, I love this super cute little cat. They're creating prediction markets on balancer. Why? Because a prediction market is always something that's balanced. Like it's also a self-balancing pool, right? You have like one token, yes, you have token no, maybe you have like multiple tokens, and you want to sell them, and you want to make sure that they trade at a specific price. So what you can do is you just set, you can just set a pool there, and you have a way in which the price sort of like where the price sort of changes according to the market, and that pool will provide you the liquidity and allow you to automatically switch, to automatically balance that out. And I think so you can sort of like almost a lot of things you build a prediction market. You just pick a pool, put 2 tokens there, yes and no, or whatever is the tokens, and you start selling that pool. You have the liquidity. You have a lot of the work in building the liquidity prediction market itself is already automated inside the pool. PrimeDAO, it's not PyDAO, before it was PrimeDAO. It's helping do liquidity bootstrapping pools. Now, liquidity bootstrapping is something that is super interesting, right? So, and I think the best way to think of it is ICOs, right? When we started the ICO craze of 2017, we think of, oh, 2017, that was the ICO craze. And what happened is that people were really trying to play around with the idea of what is the best way to sell a token online, right? Do you put it online and then you set a price? And if you set a price that doesn't doesn't match whatever is the market price, then you have a problem in which people, like, it sells out very quickly. And if you force it not to sell out very quickly, or if you force, and what happens is suddenly you have an auction on gas prices, right? What would you usually do? But some ICOs started lasting, instead of weeks, they would start last a day or last an hour or last 5 minutes. And the problem is, the minute that it starts, your ICO only lasts 5 minutes, then the real auction was happening on the gas prices. Gas prices were like the miners were getting all the extra value of how the market. If the market wants to pay $1,000 for something that is being sold $100, and like what happens is people are going to pay $100 for the token and pay $900 for the gas. And the way, and then like maybe you do an auction, maybe you do like a Dutch action where it goes down, but then often what happens is that you don't have enough liquidity for that. So I think a liquidity bootstrapping tool is something that has been happening with a lot of tokens, and what they do is they create just a token pool that has a schedule to it. So it stores, let's say, 90% Ether, or maybe it's like 50% Ether, 50% DAI. You start with the two very liquid tokens, and then you just a tiny bit, you take 1% of that and you add a new token on there. And what's going to happen is that tiny percent of that token, like the market doesn't still know what price it's going to have, so it's going to go up, it's going to go down, but mostly it's a tiny market cap, so it doesn't really matter. But every day or every hour, you increase that amount a little bit, and then a little bit more, right? And let's say you start with $1 million in very, very liquid assets like Ether and DAI, and you start with like 1% of that is in a very illiquid asset of a new token that nobody really knows like what the price is. If you, and now that pool will work as creating a buy pressure where every hour or so it's going to buy 1% more of that pool, it's going to sell it and want to buy it on that token. And the pool will do that automatically. Just increase the share slowly, and people are able to buy and sell the tokens to that pool at whatever market price they want, right? That's the interesting thing, right? The pool will basically be saying, look, I'm buying this token at this price, and then people sell more token until it sort of figure out the price, the right price, the market price. And then it's basically eating up that volatility until at some point you have a token, you have a pool that is maybe 80% or 50% or whatever rate you want for new token. Why is that's interesting? Because suddenly now you have two things. First, you are able to sell the token. You start with $1 million, and now it's mostly made of a token. It meant that if at any moment you join the pool, you would get, like, if you join the pool in the beginning, when the pool was just Ether and DAI, then by the end of it, you bought tokens without having to worry about whatever is the market price. With all the fluctuation, in fact, you gain, like, as a liquidity provider, as someone who wanted to buy the token initially, you actually gain interest. You gain all the trading fees of people just buying and selling the token until it found a market. Imagine if you do that, let's say, with Bitcoin or Ether, and you could do that with just Ether and DAI, right? You could say, look, I want to buy $1 million in DAI, like collectively, of course, not you are going to buy $1 million in Ether or buy $1 million in Bitcoin. Maybe you want to sell $1 million in Bitcoin, but you don't know what price to sell it, and you want to do it over a year. You could create a pool that starts with a big amount of money, and slowly it sells and it sells out and it sells out and it sells out, and it's, in practice, it will work like they call it a dollar average, in which you're just buying the average price. And I think that's a great way of thinking of the of pools. Yes. Next. So that's how liquidity bootstrapping pools work. And I think they work like, and like if you just search for how people are launching tokens, you realize there's a whole new universe of people launching tokens one after the other using those pools. And I think that's super interesting. So Balancer V2, we just launched in beginning of March, in beginning of May, we are in May. And I think there's some very cool things. And I think just let's talk about the elephant in the room also, like Uniswap V3. I like Balancer and Uniswap have an interesting story, right? Because they started together in which they started away and they sort of converge on the same solution, and now they are diverging it very deeply, right? So Balancer wanted like Fernando started writing a white paper because he wanted like self-balancing portfolios. Uniswap wanted trading. They ended up with the same solution, which is like a liquidity pool. And now Uniswap V3 is very different from where we are going, right? And I think it's great. It's very good for the ecosystem that everyone is trying different things. So first thing that I find super interesting is that before, every time you had to create a pool, you had to create a new smart contract. Like with the new assets are on that smart contract, with the new logic is not the smart contract. Whenever someone wants to interact with that, they would need to do an approval transaction for that smart contract. In V2, we are changing all of that. There's like one big main smart contract, which is like has been super audited, and it's actually very simple because all it does, it handles the tokens, right? There was like one big smart contract with all the tokens inside. And then whenever you want to create a new new pool, you just create the logic for it, and it plugs into that big pool, and it creates a lot of advantages. Like you pay less fees on it, you pay less gas in it, and there's also something very cool. The arbitrage is a lot cheaper on that, right? Before, if you saw, let's say, 3 or 4 pools, and there's an arbitrage opportunity. If you like, I want to buy this guy and then sell with that guy and trade with that other thing over there, you had to actually own all those tokens and trade all of them. In Balancer V2, all you need to do, you realize the arbitrage, you send instructions to the pool, and maybe you don't even need to have any tokens out, right? You don't have to have your own tokens or ever execute those trades. You just get the profit out of that, right? You just tell, hey, I realized an arbitrage. If you sell this and buy this and sell that and buy this, and then it's gonna do all of that sort of internally, and it's just gonna send you the profit, like cheaper gas, better profit, and I think that's actually fun. So it's a lot more gas efficient for that reason, and like we all know how gas is right now. Yeah, that's so that's when I also talking about how you like all the assets are now in one big smart contract, and I think that there's a lot of like advantage to that. Like you can actually you can create any logic that you want in your smart contract, just plug it to the mother chip, and you can launch whatever pool you want, right? Like make a prediction market out of it, make a DAO out of it, right? I think just think of DAO, like the original DAO, in which like you had a vote, and then you had a vote on how to spend things, and if you didn't want, you had to rage quit, and that's like also Moloch DAO. I think that's almost all of that is already inside a pool, because when you're part of a pool, you get liquidity pool tokens, which is a token which you could use to share. You could use either to sell and get those tokens out, or you could use to vote and use those votes to, let's say, change a radio, right? And then suddenly, like creating a DAO, it's a lot easier. Another cool thing, and I think that's actually like super cool, capital efficiency. Normally, like in two tokens pool, you have a large amount of capital, and then you only need you only need like a small one that is being used for trading, right? And in V2, and I think this is clearly where we and Uniswap have diverged, and I think it's fantastic. Like what you do is you allow the pool to automatically take that capital that is not being used and use it everywhere elsewhere in a lending platform, let's say, right? So you can, let's say you can have $1 million in a pool, but you have only, let's say, 100K of trading volume. So you only need, let's say, 200K of capital in that pool. The rest of the 800K can be put in compound or put in a lending platform, and automatically that lending goes back to the pool. So by owning a share of the pool, not only you own the trading fees of the pool, not only you get the self-balanced portfolio advantage, but you also can be investing it. Like it's all like your money is on Balancer, but it's also on Compound. It's also on Wi-Fi, right? It's also on idle finance, and I think that makes the difference. And like Balancer is for builders, right? What we want is like Balancer is for you who want to build stuff. And I hope you come to us and you learn more about how pools work, because pools, in fact, when you learn how they work, you realize, oh my God, I can do so much with pools. I can build so much, so many other stuff. And I think that's really fantastic. And that's it. That's my presentation. I think 21 minutes. I think it's good. So you can go to Balancer Finance. Actually, you can go to Balancer Fi, but like we have a new address, Balancer Fi, which is just, but it's going to get the redirect automatically. And like Balancer Labs, and we are hiring. So if you want to work at Balancer, just shoot an email to us. And thank you. That's it. Do you have any questions? Anyone? Okay, well, thanks, Xerox Poland for having me. Thanks, Anthony, and I really hope to see you at some point after COVID is gone.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.